Hello, my name is Stephanie. I am with the Scientist in Every Florida School program, and we're stepping into the garden today, a virtual series field trip that's presented by Mounts Botanical Garden and the Scientist in Every Florida School program. And this fall, our series is dedicated to the wetlands and their importance. Today's event is titled Wetlands, Secrets of the Swamp. And before we jump right into it, we first want to tell you quickly a little bit about our programs. The Scientist in Every Florida School is a free program housed within the Thompson Earth Systems Institute at the University of Florida. And the SEFS program has a mission to engage Florida K-12 students and teachers in cutting-edge research by providing science role models like Dr. Kanika today and experiences that will hopefully inspire future stewards of our planet. My colleague Brian and I are super excited to be with you today. Mounts Botanical Garden, our partner, is a nationally acclaimed attraction for Florida residents and visitors alike. And we have a mission here to inspire and educate through nature. So at this time, I'm going to turn things over to April Krebs. She's from Mounts Botanical Garden, just to say a couple words before introducing Dr. Kanika Inglett to you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Mounts Botanical Garden. We have 14 acres here right in Palm Beach County. If you don't know what a botanical garden is, it's kind of like a zoo for plants. So if you come, we have 25 different display gardens, and you can see a vegetable garden, a succulent garden, that has cactus. We have an herb garden, a butterfly garden. We even have a pond where you can feed the fish and see some turtles. As you look to the left of your screen here, you can see one of our gardens that incorporates a wetland. And this garden is called Windows on the Floating World. And it's really special because it's a place where we have plants that actually grow in the water. And we also have plants that grow along the edge of the water. And as you may or may not know, but I know that Kanika is going to tell you more about this, these plants are very important for the water system here in Florida. They help clean the water, and they also provide food for plants or for animals that live near the water and in the water. So I hope you get a chance to visit us here at Mounts Botanical Garden. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Kanika Inglett, and she's going to tell us about the secrets of the swamp. Take it away.
Well, hello, everyone. I am going to try and share my screen. Does that look okay?
Perfect.
Good. Okay, great. Well, hey, everyone. I am Kanika Inglett, and I'm here at the University of Florida. And I've thought today would be a good day to kind of talk about some aerial view of what is wetlands and what's the big deal about it, and really try and uncover a little bit of the secrets of the swamp, as I like to call it. And that's why I came up with this name. So before I started my journey as a graduate student here, I really did not know much about wetlands. So it was almost like a very secretive environment for me. I had no idea what it had, why it was there, what was the importance of it. So it was almost like, I'd like to say, entering into a mysterious room to get to know more about it. So what happens in here is it's almost like there's this dark black box, and what we're going to do today is kind of just enter that and kind of see what is the importance and significance of that. So the first thing when I started to study wetlands, the first thing was what really wetlands means to me. So all I could think was of dark water, rotting wood, rotten egg smell sometimes. Like I probably, when you walk through it, it's like, what is that smell? So then you have slime, and then you can see a lot of mosquitoes, and it's just kind of eerie sometimes. It's like quiet and it's dark and it's just dingy and all this kind of things. So that's what wetlands was to me. So what I did was for this talk especially, so I went to 4 of my friends, some from high school and some from middle school, and actually a couple from elementary school. And I asked them, okay, tell me what are the questions you would have if you had to know things about wetlands. So these are all these questions. These are just a few of them, like what it makes a wetland system. Why are these wetlands so important? What do they do? Why? What makes them so mysterious? And are there any important wetlands in the world? Does Florida have them? And why are they so important in the news? So it's all these questions. So I thought maybe this would be a good way to start our little journey. So I told them to go ahead and for the next couple of weeks, just walk around and see if they can see some wetlands around. So what they found was, and they came back and they reported, so they found there were some, they looked online, they went driving around, they saw in person, they found a lot of these places which had water, standing water in them, especially after it had rained a bit. And they came back with this information. They found some which were naturally occurring, as you can see here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the bottom picture, which is these are natural wetlands, which are generally along the rivers and deltas, and they could be in the inland a little bit. Then they found that some places they could be constructed, like if they found an industry and right next to it, where all the effluent and the bad water kind of goes out of the industry, it would go in a wetland. And then from there, before it was released into the big rivers and the other canals and things like that. So, and then they found something which is called floating wetlands. And I'll show you some more pictures to get some idea. So then the next question is, what are we, oops, sorry. So what are we looking at here, wetlands? What does that mean? So are swamps wetlands? Yes. Are peatlands wetlands? Yes. Sloughs, marshes? Yes, yes. Bogs and fens? Yes. Potholes? Yes. So all these are just names for wetlands. Just like I was thinking about if you're asked, somebody asks you, what do you like to eat? And you talk about pizza and vegetables, and I hope you do eat vegetables, and I eat eggs and cakes and things like that. But the vegetable covers all kinds of vegetables. So this is just like that. The wetlands have all these names, but each of these have specific properties and qualities, which because of time, I can't go into depth in them, but it would be fun for you guys to look at it. So like in Northern America, you have different kinds of wetlands. They're called bogs sometimes. Fens, some of these are rain-fed. Only the water sources comes from the rain. And in some cases, the water just comes from the runoff from the sides when it rains a lot. So the neighboring lands can bring water into the wetlands. So there are different ways wetlands are formed. Then the other ways people try to distinguish wetlands are they're freshwater wetlands. This is just the different kinds. They can look so different as you see here. You see here, like some are open water, the ones with these little floating leaves on top. Then you have swampy places like the big trees, and and then you have a little the domes, cypress domes that you can find at some places. Which, if you're driving down to South Florida, you can see. If you look into the wetlands area, you have these trees, like a dome-shaped trees. So those are, and then in some cases, it could just be vegetation. Sometimes these wetlands can even be dry for some period of time. And we'll talk about this in a minute as to how do you still know that's a wetland then. So, but in addition to freshwater wetlands, we also have the saltwater or mud flats. Have you heard of those? If you've gone to maybe Savannah, Georgia, that these salt marshes there, again, that's where you generally smell that rotten egg smell, which is because of the sulfur which is present there. So you have also estuaries. If you remember, estuaries is when the river meets the sea, that area, some part of it. So those are sometimes in the wetlands. So just to give you an idea of, they can look so different, and you would see that they have amazing properties. And I would really, really encourage you to go ahead, and not just in South Florida, but as you go up north, you will see there are so many different kinds of wetlands. And as you're looking at them, I want you to look at the vegetation. So when you're coming from South Florida, you will see there are more mangroves. Have you seen mangroves there? Those big trees on the side with those gnarly roots on the side. So you have those, but as you start moving up north, you will see different kind of vegetation as well. And so lots and lots of research going on as to what's really driving this movement of some of these mangroves. They're shifting more northward now. What could be the causes? Is it the climate change? Is it the global warming? So we're just kind of looking into that. So having looked at all this, I would say, what do you think are some of the major components of a wetland? So you're welcome to put it in the chat box if you have any answers. But I also have answers here. So except for the brave scientists that you see here, we have the major components would be vegetation, water, and soils. You know, this is a question I ask my graduate students a lot. And it's interesting because they talk about vegetation, they talk about, I tell them to close their eyes for a minute and look into, as if they're looking down into wetlands, and tell me, what do they see? Do they see birds? They see animals? They see alligator? They see vegetation? They see water? But nobody says the word soils. And I want to make sure that you all understand that is an extremely important component of a wetland. And then, so the first question when those students had, we started taking those questions one by one. Next was, what makes wetlands so special? How is it different from an upland system? For example, if you're looking at a terrestrial system where, you know, the farmlands or the grasslands where you walk on, where even if it's rain, the water doesn't really collect a lot, those would be upland systems. So in a wetland systems, there are some unique properties. The three important components I talked about, the vegetation, water, and soil, right? So vegetation. So think about it. Can you survive underwater for a really long time? It's probably hard, right? Because we are just not adapted for that system. But the fish can, and some of the other animals and amphibians can for a short period of time. So in a wetland system, vegetation, which you have, which is specific to that, can actually survive because they have special adaptation. So this is just to show you, sometimes do you see when you have open water, these lilies and these little long stem plants which are floating? So if you take one of those stems and cut it or slice it, you will see structure looks like something like that with these little holes in it. And that is very important for these plants because it allows the air to move up and down, and that's how these plants can survive. And oxygen is important for most of these plants. Here you can see another roots of some of these trees that you see on the side. These are just interesting roots. Another interesting feature about some of these roots for some of these trees which exist on the side of the water is that there is no clear consensus of what is the purpose of these roots. You know, thought initially was this is how they breathe, but really that has not had any direct evidence. So that's interesting. Now, the other aspect is, so this vegetation, which is specific, is called hydrophytic vegetation. Hydro means water and phytic is loving. And then you have water. Now, what is importance of water? So in a wetland system, in the definition given is set, which all the scientists kind of agree with, is how long the water stays on the soil, how long and how frequently the system is wet. All that really matters because all that will decide what kind of vegetation will grow and what kind of soils will be there. Now, what do you mean by soils? So there is a term which is associated with soils called the hydric soil. Same thing, hydro is water, and they love water. So these soils you can see here are interesting because as you dig deeper within the soil, you will notice most of the oxygen in the soil is in the top surface. As you go deeper down, those soils become, the term is anoxic. So anoxic means they don't have oxygen. Very interesting, isn't it? Because when you look at the bacteria or the other microorganisms in the soil profile, you will see most of the oxygen, the bacteria, like you have these little bugs here, microorganisms here, who are not happy because there is no oxygen deeper down. So they're scared and they tend to stay on the top surface. Those are called the aerobic organisms. As you go deeper down in the soil, you will notice there's no oxygen. So you have a lot more different kind of bacteria which love that environment when there is no oxygen. So those are called anaerobic microorganisms. And this is just to show you that as you go deeper in soil, you will see no oxygen. So the importance, and also there are certain indicators. So when you take a soil, you can actually look at it and say, oh, sometimes you have these orange lines or like a bluish gray soil. You know those could be wetland soils because the orange is, if there's iron in the system, if it's oxidized, it becomes orange. If it's reduced or anaerobic, it becomes like bluish gray. So I will really encourage you to go and don't just put your hand in there, but if you can get a core, look at it. So, or look online, there's plenty of pictures. So the way, because of the property of the soil and the water and the vegetation. This makes it a really unique system, because what happens is the material doesn't decompose. When the plant and litter material falls, it doesn't break down all of it, so it tends to start accumulating. So that becomes peat. Down in South Florida, what you see in the Everglades is a highly peat soil, very organic soil. So what does that mean now in terms of how important are these wetlands? Are they all over? I would say, yeah, the distribution of wetlands all over, the different kinds of wetlands. So this is just to give you an idea of all over the world. You see this permafrost on the north side, you see? They kind of contribute because under that things don't decompose fast, they collect. So those are where the permafrost is. And then as you keep coming down, there are some wetlands which are more salt affected. Some are more upland, which just means they're not at lowlands. And then there are some which are present in deeper valleys. So there are different kinds of wetland systems. There's, as you can see, the distribution is a lot all over the world. So the next question is that I was asked was, are there any wetlands in the US? What about in Florida? There are so many, but I love the Everglades because that's where I work. And that was where I first was introduced to wetlands, and I fell in love with that place. So that is also, it's extremely unique compared to all the other wetland systems for plenty of reasons. I wish I had a lot of time. I would tell you stories about it maybe next time, but the Everglades is one in Florida, and then you have Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge. These are just some of the names I've given here, but I've given you a resource on top, and you can actually find a lot of wetlands within the United States. Also, California, Nevada, that Death Valley, a lot of work is being done there as well. Another thing I wanted to mention was in South America and Brazil, there is a wetland system. It's as big as the state of Florida. So things around the world, there are some incredible places you can find wetlands. So why are they so important? Let's see. Lots of things. The first things that generally people what comes to their mind is the wildlife habitat. Sure, you have shellfish, you have fish, you have threatened and endangered species, and there are certain plant species, like 7,000 all over the world, and a lot of them you can find in the wetland systems. There's a high biodiversity. You've heard that term. Bio means life, and diversity is different kinds. These spaces also have very economically valuable, for example, they supply food for many resources. Fishing is somewhere close by, and then of course you can grow certain foods, you can catch certain foods in these spaces. Another aspect of this is that this is a very high ecosystem productivity. This ecosystem has a high productivity. What that means is that it keeps the carbon. There's a big talk about carbon budget and carbon credits. So these wetland systems are huge for that. They're going to protect the environment in a lot of ways. They also can be used because they clean the water. Remember, I told you a lot of people build these wetland systems next to industries. And in fact, in some places, they build it next to the houses, urban areas. So all the water which is running off when rain happens from the street surface, a lot of water runs in. It brings with it all the junk which is on the road, right? In terms of sometimes pesticides, sometimes just things which are not necessarily good. So when it passes through a wetland system, it's almost like it filters through before all the water goes into rivers in the natural water system. I don't know if some of you have seen those filter carafes or the Brita water system. You know how you let the water sit for a while and it filters through? That's exactly how the wetlands work. And so then there is also, what are they used for? Sometimes they are helpful because it's Florida. You know, we all have hurricanes, huge ones. So when that happens, there is a lot of storm surges can happen also in the coastal areas. So these wetlands are very important to prevent flash floods in the area. So extremely important for protection, for wildlife, and also for recreation. You get to see and study the different kinds of birds and animals there, and even have go, canoeing if you haven't been. That's a great way. So now there was one question a student had asked me was, are these always beneficial? That's a tough one. So I would say yes and no, and we'll talk about it in a minute. So this is just some of the pictures I pulled up from this website just to give you an idea as to there are different kinds of wildlife that you can see here. This is in the Everglades. So one invasive species that you probably, do you know what that is? I have a picture of it here and you're welcome to put it in the chat box, but there are these huge little reptiles which came in. And so those, because they didn't have a natural predator here, they were brought in as invasive species that spread. So we have issues too going on, and we have to anyways protect our native species there. So just to tell you that it's just a wildlife habitat. Also, I told you wetlands can actually improve the food supply. So in a lot of other countries, and this is a shot from India when I've gone there, people grow rice. You know, paddy fields, people grow rice. Those are in wetlands actually. And you can see here, that is where the staple food is for 50% of the world's population eats rice. And wetlands, those are the place where people grow a lot of rice. Also, like some people, you might have seen, they catch fish and they catch other shellfish and things like that you can get from the wetland system. Also, some plants that they have in wetland systems are also edible. So another thing, like I was telling you, some of these wetland systems, they are used for to irrigate. So when we've gone to India, we teach a course there. And so when we talk to the farmers there, a lot of water, they don't have much water in that state. So the best way is what you recycle your resources. But you can't really recycle it because they are not, it's not a rich country in the sense of they don't have a lot of resources. These the villages are poor places, but they are people were smart enough to make these wetland systems. So you can design a wetland system in a very interesting and creative way. So the water slows down as it is moving through it. It filters whatever you need to filter through, and then the surface water that goes through is cleaner, and then they use it to irrigate the rest of the field. So they might not, excuse me, for drinking, but they can use it for irrigating some of the fields. Also, another important thing I had spoken earlier about was storm surges. So here, when the water is rushing through after a big rain event, you know, when you went through these densely populated wetland systems, when water passes through them, it kind of slows down the water speed. So think about it. If there's water with a lot of particulate matter, like stuff from the road and stuff, gritty stuff coming really fast, everything will move. But if it slows down, it gives it enough time for things to sediment down and settle down. So the top water now is cleaner and it can leave the system. So that's good. Some of when you construct the wetland systems, there are different kinds of vegetation that you have in them. And when you go down to South Florida, you will see that a lot. So here is an example of submersed aquatic vegetation. The terminology SAV is very common, which is hydrilla. So this also, sometimes people use it in their fish tanks. This is the vegetation that stays underwater. Very important because it generates oxygen, which allows the other animals to survive and fish to survive. Then you can also see in some wetland systems, sometimes it's covered with a lot of floating aquatic vegetation. So this is just an example of some of that. If you get to see it, try and identify what it looks like and see if you can find what its name is. Water hyacinth or Icornia is another one. And here I want to show you, these are the kind of the floating wetlands which people use to kind of clean up the water which is polluted or dirty. And how they do that is the roots of these plants are super important. So here, do you see these roots? Thick roots. So when they're floating over water, it's almost like I was thinking vacuum cleaner. So when it's running in the house, you know, one of those Roombas, or I think it's called a Roomba, when it walks through, it kind of picks up stuff. That's how this almost operates like that. And then you can remove this from the wetland system and use it for a lot of things. In fact, you can see this technology or strategy has been used a lot for cleaning up some of the water bodies. So now, okay, so we've made a point. Hopefully that wetlands are important. So what's the big deal? Why is it in the news? One of the main things is that wetlands are disappearing very quickly because of several reasons. We have lost almost 35% of the world's wetlands in the past less than 50 years, which is huge because all these things that I just spoke about, they're gone. And for that, there is an organization called the Ramsar organization, which is a world organization, which is dedicated to protecting wetlands and looking at how we can make it more beneficial. And also, just a little fun fact, World Wetlands Day celebrated on February 2nd. And if you knew it, good job. If you didn't, now you know it. So what they want, the reason why we're losing wetlands is because there's population increase, there's climate change happening, and then there is a loss of the sea level rises happening. We're losing wetlands because of that. Another thing is because we need more food and more land for people to live on. So people had started to drain some of these wetlands and started to build houses and grow crops in these areas. There is a big story about what happened in South Florida and the Everglades as to when the farmers took the land and they grew some crops, they added some fertilizer. Over time, the state bought the land back. That fertilizer stayed there, and which has changed the whole vegetation now in South Florida. Very interesting story. I think the Land Remembered is a book. Look for those books. Learn about the state's wetland system. It is fascinating. But anyway, so what does that mean now? The soil is very fertile, and so people like to grow stuff on it. So this brings back us back to the question when I said, I understand wetlands are important, but they are beneficial, right? So can we drain these wetlands and build houses, or what can be the other important issues related to these wetlands? So soil subsidence, for example, is huge. So here is, I want to show you this. This is down in South Florida, right in the south of Lake Okeechobee, the Everglades agriculture area. This house that you see here, you see that little box where I've written exposed septic tank. Septic tanks, naturally, if you know, are supposed to be, when the people constructed, it's several feet deep. But over time, guess what happened? You can see this house. Over time, this house, the soil around the house has just subsided, or it's kind of subsided means it has surface levels have gradually dropped, or the sinking of that land is happening because this land it was a wetland. The soils are very fertile. It was decomposed very quickly. So there's one of my colleagues there standing next to a post which was built in 1927. You can see where the surface of soil was, and now in 2012, when they took the picture, how much of the soil had completely disappeared. So that's why you can see that house. You can see the foundational post of it. So a lot of houses actually down in South Florida. So pay attention when you drive down there and see what happened. So this is just telling you how much we have lost because we have drained those wetlands. And the second piece is about the greenhouse gases. Now here, another very important critical aspect. You've heard of methane, you've heard of carbon dioxide, and the third one is nitrous oxide. All those three, very important. Methane, especially, big component. Wetlands are producers of that. And because of the plants, remember I showed you the plants, they have those little air spaces in them. The same way air enters the plants, these gases which are formed in the wetland system, this carbon dioxide and the methane, they can shoot out of the plant too. The plants actually, they're not producing it, but they act as a conduit for these gases to be released. So now what makes, we have answered pretty much what makes a wetland and what makes them so mysterious, what do they do, why are they important? One last question. So I had these students ask me was, what if I want to study more about wetlands? What would we do? So they asked me, is it really exciting to work in wetlands, or is it boring? And I was like, absolutely yes. And let me show you why it's exciting. So number one is the research component. That's what I do. So for the research, you're doing problem solving. So it's almost like any researcher, you're being a detective. So in case you heard about the oil spill that happened in the wetlands and how that oil spill affected the wetlands, because wetlands want to protect. So we try and find that out. And this picture in the bottom half, you can see was an aerial shot of how the water, which is coming in from the agriculture land, you can see one side is dark and one is not so dark. That's where all the nutrients are coming from. So you can see how much of that water was being cleaned by these systems. So otherwise, this would all go straight into the natural water body. There is also research in the lab, and we bring stuff, the cores of soils and water from the field, and we analyze those in the lab. In the field, that's the fun part. These are some of the students, not just my students, but in the lab I worked with the previous students. They love to work in the field. You can see here, of course, just working and collecting soil samples, playing in mud. They really need to take a shower when they go home after this one. I hope they did. But these were some fun things they had to do, and just teaching even children about the wetland system. It's exciting because they get to learn how things work. And then we actually got an opportunity to camp with my research team within the Everglades in the interior of it, where you would otherwise never get to go. It's not open to public, but as researchers, we could. We camped overnight, and then the nights when we looked, it was interesting because the West Palm lights were far away, but these alligators, you could see their orange eyes all around these platforms that you see. They were all like one wrong step, and you would be gator bait that time. Not just for young people, we had some old folks too. They really love to have fun in wetlands, play with mud and water over here. We get to do some research about the fire. Fire is a very important component in the wetland system. So for folks who love fire and want to study that, there's a lot of potential opportunity for that as well. And then another important part is that people had found, actually peat soil, which is the soil like down South Florida, which is also called organic soil, which means the soil over decomposing plant material over time. They have found that there are organisms in that soil, and they can be used to make batteries. So there is a thing called mudwort, which I talk about in my class. You can make fuel cells with that. Even if you just take a mason jar and stick anode, cathode in it, you can see it lights up. Those are because of the microbes. You don't have to do anything special to it. It's just very fascinating. And there's doing a lot of research to understand which microbes might do that specifically. Okay, so how do we go to our sampling sites? I got a chance to travel, to fly to my sites, which was fascinating. That was my first time in a chopper. We get to use a lot of airboats. Again, a great way and a resource, and just have to make sure you don't go right to the sampling site, and because then it disturbs the soil. So what you have to do eventually is to walk to your site. You have to be kind of careful with this, because sometimes we do have friends around, like this nice little gator who was just a little bit further off and camouflaged well, but we survived. And then the last aspect I want to talk to you about is the teaching, which I think, kind of talked about these two slides earlier. And it's a great satisfaction to be able to do this, to get the passion for wetlands and studying into young minds. So you understand that this resource that you have, the importance of it, and you grow up to protect it more than anything. Also, while teaching, we got to travel a lot to different places and really see the knowledge we had gained to apply it. So I guess towards the end, I would say it was open secrets now of the swamp, really, more than anything. So that's all I have. And if you have questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you so much for that excellent presentation. I know I certainly learned a lot, and I'm sure our students did as well. Our first question that has come in is, what is the largest wetland in Florida?
Oh, that's a great one. So I would say the Everglades is the largest freshwater wetland system that we have, which has low phosphorus, which is unique. So, and there are a couple of others too, which are kind of on the same scale. And east side, northeast side has a lot of wetlands as well of the country.
Thank you. Yeah, we had another teacher write and said, students would like to know how many wetlands are there in the world?
Oh, that's a toughie. I don't know. So when the correct answer to that would be there's some very important large ones, but each country has its own small ones as well. And so it's hard to count, but area-wise, I think it's at 10% or so of the particular land which is covered by wetlands in certain areas. I'll be happy to send that information. Email me. and I
Thank you.
can send that. Mhm.
Yeah, great. Next, we have one teacher wrote in and said, one of my students would like to know how the plants are able to grow in the body of water. Wouldn't that be too much water for a plant?
Oh, what a great question. Yes, yes, absolutely. That's why these plants are like special plants. They're called hydrophytic. And like I showed you, they have certain adaptations to live in the water system, like the root type and how they do some of their metabolic functions. So those changes, yeah.
Next up, we have a question from Mariana who asks, can anoxic conditions kill a plant?
Oh, yes. So yes, in anoxic conditions, generally the plants do they do need oxygen, but I think the roots of the plants always have oxygen coming out. So the area around the roots it's oxygenated. So extreme anoxic conditions would, but just if it's a temporary flash, then they can survive. That's what the adaptations do to that system. Mhm.
What about this one? Which state in the US has the most wetlands?
Oh, that's a good one. I would like to say a lot of cities in Florida. You have a lot of water systems here. I want to say Florida. That's a great question. And honestly, I want to say Florida, but I will check on that.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have, can wetlands be man-made?
Yes, those are the constructed wetlands I was talking about. Absolutely, you can do those. And in fact, down in South Florida, people who live there, do you know the stormwater treatment areas, the STAs they call it, which is right next to the water conservation areas before they enter wetlands? Those are all man-made, and they're around 52,000 acres of land, which they're constructed wetlands. So it's huge. So yes.
Great, thank you. Could you please briefly explain what bogs are?
Okay, so bogs they are more acidic. That's the main difference is like, and they're found in the northern regions, they're in the colder systems, and the pH is more acidic compared to what you find down in the Everglades. Everglades is more alkaline in the pH. That means its pH is around 7.8 because of the calcareous nature of the soils we have here, which is more calcium carbonate. Bogs tend to be more acidic. So in movies, you would see if they put a dead body in the bog, it just stays, it doesn't decompose fast.
Our next question that came in is, how big can wetlands be?
They can be super big. Like I said, there's one in Brazil. I want to say it's Panzadera. Those are as big as the state of Florida, just to give you a visual. And the ones that we constructed down in South Florida, the STAs, those are around 52,000 acres. So huge.
Wow.
They can be. Mm-hmm.
How many different animals can live in a wetland?
Oh, great question. Oh, I wish I knew the answer to that. I don't know, but many. I would say several. The diversity is huge. Now, one of the major important thing for the diversity of a wetland is if you have diverse plants there, then those become habitats and food for different organisms which are there. So just very quickly, down in South Florida, because of some of the impact of urbanization around, we started impacting those wetlands. And so it is changing the vegetation. So which is some of the animals cannot survive there because their food and habitat has been taken away because the vegetation changed. So.
And we'll wrap up with one more question. This one is, do wetlands have structures? And that could be, what are they composed of? What are the components it takes to be a wetland, or things like that?
Great question. Yes, actually, that is what we study exactly. So when I say structures, it's the kind of vegetation which gives the wetland one part of its uniqueness. Then the kind of soil gives it another part of uniqueness. So then how much of they could be mineral wetland systems or organic wetland systems. And that can decide as to what kind of would be the properties of that wetland system, in terms of what water it can clean, how much of how fertile the system would be, how good of a cleaner that wetland system could be for the pesticides that come in or the pollutants that come in. So all that is decided by the properties of that specific wetland. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know you've had a tremendous impact today with over 120 attendees. We really appreciate your time and all the knowledge you've shared with us. I'll turn things over to Stephanie to wrap up this presentation.
Okay,
Thanks, Brian. And thanks so much, Dr. Inglett. That was super fascinating. We had lots of questions coming in, and I know we lost a few classrooms because of times and class period changes. So as a reminder, if you'll pass along the information that this was recorded and will be on the UF Earth Systems YouTube channel, along with the resources that were associated for today's program. You can also take a moment to fill out the survey that we've passed a link along to in the chat box to tell us about your opinion on today's topic. So we would love for you to do that for us. And finally, a last slide here I'll share. You can find more out about both the Mount and SEF's programs by visiting our website seen here on your screen. You can follow us on social media and again on our YouTube channel as well. So our next and final fall series wetlands themed program will be on December 14th, and it will actually be about the Florida Everglades specifically. So we hope to see you then. Have a great day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you.